let's talk about the State of the Union. I want to know specifically why Joe Biden did not apologize for the lies that he gave for much of last year about Republicans when it came to voting. He said he compared Republicans to people like George Wallace and Bull Connor. And you had new information from the University of Georgia. It was a survey of more than 1,200 Georgia voters. It found that 0% of Black respondents said their voting experience in Georgia was poor in the 2022 midterm elections. And about 73% of these Black voters said it was an excellent experience, and it was equal to the white voters. So I wish that he would have had more olive branches and more acknowledgement. It was just him saying, I want to do more of my liberal agenda, but he actually never apologized or admit any fault. Why wouldn't he in this case?
Well, first of all, a couple of things. I think you're slightly conflating the reports that you've seen that voter ID has not affected the voter experience. That making it harder to send in mail-in ballots and getting rid of drop boxes and making it harder for disabled people to vote and things like that, that stuff hasn't changed. So yes, I said from day one, it's been almost 20 years since we've having this voter ID debate. I see nothing wrong with voter ID. I don't think it's necessary, but I think it's good to have, because just because voter fraud doesn't exist, it's a myth in the eyes of most people other than Donald Trump, that doesn't mean that it couldn't exist. So I think it's good to be proactive. And I will admit, and I've said this before, I think Biden has been very Trumpy in his inability to apologize, his inability to admit when he made mistakes, like Afghanistan would have been a classic example. Say, look, I could have handled it better. So I agree with you on that. And I think it was that's Biden's problem, is that he's done some bipartisan stuff and he's gotten a lot achieved, but a lot of the rhetoric. I mean, when he said these voting laws were worse than Jim Crow, I was joking this morning. It's like he said it was Jim Eagle. I'm still not sure what the heck that means, but in any case, and then the same thing, it was the worst case of, racial voting attacks since the Civil War and all this stuff. That was totally unnecessary. I said before, and this is a debate we've had, and this is my final comment on these voter ID laws. There's no reason to make it harder to vote. These laws were passed because it does make it harder for some people to vote. They were not passed because they were needed, because voter fraud is a myth. It does not exist in close to any extent to affect elections. So I think that's what there's a distrust. In Georgia, Democrats won the state legitimately. It scared the bejesus out of Republicans, and that's why they passed that voter law. That's a fact.
I can respond, or we can go to our next question. Up to you.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about the State of the Union because I want to get into that. But
yeah.
I think what's also really important, just to say one final thing about Biden, is that his problem again is that he can't use the bully pulpit as effectively as most presidents, and this gets back to my plea that he doesn't run again. He can't go out and do those 7 and 8 campaign events, and so you have the rhetoric that sometimes is out there, but you don't have a president who can go out there the way most presidents can, and personally sell people. So I think that's also been a problem with him.